Hey folks, we are going to dig into World War II. I tend to highlight the buildup to World War II, the climate that is gearing up in Europe, as well as the climate that's gearing up in Japan mainly. This lecture is mainly going to cover that. There are some rough spots in here. I will show some pictures from the Holocaust and talk pretty in depth about those. I'll give you a warning. There's also a warning slide when we get there, so that if you don't want to view those images, that's it's okay. I'll spell out the camps, the names of the camps, so that if you just don't even want to look during those times, I'll give you some warning and spell out the names of the camps so that if you're taking notes, you don't even have to look at the screen. And then I'll let you know when we've gotten away from those images again. So um, we skipped over World War One. I tend to do that. You kind of have to select what you'll talk about, what you don't. And so I tend to skip over World War One, but something that we do need to hit is that after World War One concluded, Germany and other European countries, but Germany is really going to get hit with the Treaty of Versailles. Treaty of Versailles does a couple of things that very, very much impact Germany. One is it limits the size of Germany's military. They do not have a very, very large army. They have a very, very limited navy. They are not permitted to have an air force. Germany's going to find loopholes and kind of lie about the size of their military, claiming that uh, these these ships are not naval ships, kind of stuff like that, and do those kinds of things. But that's one of the big things that Treaty of Versailles hits them with. The other thing, and Hitler is really, really going to capitalize on this as he comes to power, but Germany is hit with reparations. Germany, after the conclusion of World War One, is going to have to pay reparations to several of the Allied countries. Now, they were involved in fighting the war. They did lose. It's understandable that they might be forced to pay for the some of the expenses of the countries that defeated them, but Germany is rebuilding herself, and at the same time, Germany is being forced to pay these reparations. And so Germany is really, really going to struggle. And then in 1929, when the Great Depression hits the United States, it's going to ripple out to all of the other markets worldwide. And so while Germany is struggling to rebuild herself, paying these reparations, on top of that, the markets in Germany are going to get hit. And so Germany is getting just slammed left and right. And Hitler is going to take advantage of that on his rise to power. And a big thing, especially with the Treaty of Versailles, Hitler is going to blame German Jewish people and claim that they have stabbed Germany in the back. They have negotiated the Treaty of Versailles. We non-Jewish Germans would have done a better job of that and not agreed to pay these horrible, horrible reparations that are crippling the economy. And so one of the things that Hitler does on his rise is he really goes after the Jewish population for what he says is their contribution to the Treaty of Versailles. So, um, so things are struggling, and the Depression is going to spark a lot of countries to move towards fascism in Europe. And fascism is an authoritarian government. It's an authoritarian government that's also really, really closely allied with private industry. And so the government is going to favor the wealthy and the capitalists and stuff like that. It's just usually, not always, but usually how fascism plays out. Another highlight, I guess, of fascism. Fascism also really centers on usually a strongman figure as well as a very strong military that is focused on, expansion. We need more resources. We are being taken advantage of. We need these resources. We need to expand our territory is usually a big thing during this time period. And so Germany, Italy, as well as Japan are going to see expansion to other territories as a solution to the problems going on in their respective countries. Another big thing, the United States is not interested in this. As you know, Germany, as Europe starts to kind of topple and gets unstable and edges towards war, the United States is not interested in getting involved. The American public, the administration, is not quite interested. The American public is probably more so interested in staying out of the conflict. The Roosevelt administration sort of is being pragmatic and look, if we don't get involved at this point, later down the road, it's going to be worse and we're going to be forced to get involved. So the Roosevelt administration is going to get involved, but they have to be careful to not anger the American public. So, Hitler is going to take power in 1933, and really quickly, Hitler is going to call for Lebensraum. Germany is geographically a small country, and Hitler argues that the German people, the Aryan people, need Lebensraum. They need living space. We need to expand beyond the borders of Germany to recognize how awesome and powerful and super cool that we all are. And so Germany is really going to push against that. At the same time, Hitler, the emerging Nazi party, are going to blame the other people. It's not our fault that Germany is struggling. It's all these other people that are in Germany that don't really quite belong, that don't have the same mindset or the same genetics that the Aryan people do. And so you see a really big effort from the Nazi party to blame other people for the problems of Germany. Um, so, we usually, when we talk about the Holocaust, we really center on the Jewish people. They are absolutely going to be centered on by the Nazi party. But the Nazis are also going to blame homosexuals. Hey, all these gay people that are living, different lifestyles than our traditional lifestyles. This is not good. We should get rid of these people. The Nazi party also goes after communists and socialists. On Facebook, you hear a lot of people, screaming, the Nazi party or the National Socialist Party. Yeah, that's their name because they co-opted it from a union group. The Nazis were not socialists. They were not communists. They actually locked up socialists and communists. Anarchists, people that don't believe in a strong central government or really any government from the anarchist standpoint, those people are problematic. We need to get rid of those people. We also need to get rid of Romani. We call what we used to call gypsies, we call Romani today. So all of these other people, this sort of social decline, as the Nazi party will argue, this is why Germany is doing bad. It's because of these people that don't line up with traditional German values or our idealism on as far as the economy, as far as the government. It's these people that are the problem, and we've got to get rid of those. and they become increasingly aggressive. And we'll talk about the steps that they do, because in 1933, the Nazis aren't just going to say, hey, let's exterminate these people. We've got to slow walk that. We've got to get the population of Germany ready to do something like that. And we've also got to, kind of create a little bit of plausible deniability. The Jewish people are going somewhere. Where are they going? I don't know, but they're going somewhere. You're murdering them all? I didn't say anything like that. So they really kind of, the German public knows something's happening. But if you're a German in Germany in the 1930s, early 1930s especially, you can just kind of, I don't know, the Jewish people are going somewhere else, and the gay people are going somewhere else. They're not broadcasting, you know, that these people are, we're planning on killing these people or anything like that. So we'll go step by step on that here in a second. A similar thing is happening in Japan. I tend to skip over Italy, but a similar thing is happening in Japan. Japan's a very small island, and they argue that they have reached the point that a lot of the Western powers had, and they should be able to take colonies now. And so Japan is going to be incredibly aggressive. And a big thing is that the Japanese are going to regard a lot of the other people in their hemisphere, especially a lot of the other Asian people, Koreans, Chinese people, as subhuman. These people are they're going to argue that these people are subhuman, and it makes it easier to mistreat those people, to kill those people, to just run roughshod over them. And so, early in the 1930s, Japan is going to move into China. They are going to claim the territory of China called Manchuria. It's a little bit up for debate at the time. Japan claimed that that section had traditionally belonged to them. China says no. And so there's a little bit of a dispute on, which country actually owned that, and how much. But Japan is going to move on that territory and start to capture it. And a really good example of how terribly that the Japanese people thought of the Chinese people is an event called the Rape of Nanking. This goes on for about 6 weeks. The city of Nanking is a city within Manchuria, and during their invasion of Manchuria, the Japanese military is going to capture the city of Nanking. There's not a whole lot of military there. It's mostly civilians that are just living their lives. And over the course of 6 weeks, the Japanese military will murder about 200,000 people in the city of Nanking. And the brutality of this, like, not only is the murder bad enough itself, but the brutality of this is absolutely atrocious. I needed a prop. Uh, when the Japanese forces first push into Nanking, the officers tell the enlisted Japanese soldiers that these people are not worth bullets. You have orders to kill as absolutely many of these people as you possibly can, but do not expend bullets on them. They are not worth the bullets in your rifle. And they're ordered to beat the people to death with rocks. And, I got a headphone case here. Just imagine swinging a brick at somebody over and over, physically, not getting rid of, kind of any kind of morality or any, horrific ideas or anything. Just physically, you can't do that all day. And very, very quickly, the officers realize this because the men are just beat from swinging bricks at people. And eventually, they relent and order the enlisted soldiers just to shoot people. But early on, it was beat people to death with rocks. Uh, Another really, really disturbing thing that happened at Nanking was those two guys on that newspaper clipping right there. Uh, Japanese officers usually come from well to do families, and well to do families tend to come from the samurai class in Japan. And usually, those well to do families have a samurai sword that has been passed down through the generations. If you don't have one, they will issue you one. But most of the time, those families come from this kind of upper class samurai families. And so those two guys are military officers in Japan, and they're deployed to Nanking. And the article in Japanese says, incredible record. Mackay and Noda, both second lieutenants, go into extra innings. They're making baseball jokes. Why are they making baseball jokes? Because those two guys decided to have a contest during that 6 weeks in Nanking. They wanted to see which one of them could behead the most civilians in a single hour. And so they lined up, a couple of hundred civilians, a little over 200 civilians, and beheaded them to see which one could do it the fastest, or more people in one single hour. You don't have to get the numbers down, but Mackay beheaded 106 people, and Noda beheaded 105. Uh, the article said that they had planned to go into extra innings because that contest was so close, just one off, that it seemed a little too close and they wanted to give it another try. Um, so, just on seeing who could behead the most people, they killed over 200 people. After the war, both of these two are taken back to China and executed in China in 1948. But the Pacific War is absolutely, absolutely atrocious. The war in Europe's really, really bad too, but the Pacific, you see some really, really terrible, terrible atrocities. And you see this similar in Europe, but it's just kind of, I don't know. But back in Germany, kind of as we're building toward the Holocaust, remember I said we don't just start this flipping a switch, it's gradual. And kind of, think about this. So back in Germany, eugenics are started. 225,000 people are sterilized. Mental disorders, blindness, physical issues, drug and alcohol addicts are going to be sterilized. That particular poster right there above my head is from a Nazi Party magazine that says this hereditarily ill person will cost our national community 60,000 Reichsmarks over the course of his lifetime. Citizen, this is your money. And so they really try to play it like, hey, we're doing a kindness by, you know, uh, euthanizing these people, and also it's cheaper. So they're really, really trying to kind of play up a lot of times that, we're doing a kindness. These people do not live lives worth living. There's a German phrase for that, as well as it just being expensive. And we are in sort of austere times. So, so they do initially just sterilize a lot of people. Later, they move to just killing people, and they spread it out. Germany, as far as the mental institutions and the hospitals for the handicapped and stuff like that, they spread it out so that they don't get the population worried about it. They'll kind of, if there's too many from one city, they'll kind of, parcel them out as they kill those people. Uh, Big thing, they have increasingly strict uh, controls for Jewish people. And I'm going to run through it, but the idea here that I want you to see is that we're gradually eliminating Jewish people from public life. The Jewish people are disappearing from public life, not because they're being killed yet, not even because they're being put in camps. They're just being restricted from doing these things. And these people are already out of public life before they're sent to camps. Um, so, the number of physicians physicists, sorry, not physicians, the physicists that work on the atomic weapons program, they leave about now. They start seeing the writing on the wall that Germany is incredibly, incredibly hostile towards the Jewish population. And so a lot of the physicists that end up working on the Manhattan Project, Albert Einstein's not working on the Manhattan Project, but he leaves us around this time as well. So a lot of those folks are going to go. But uh, the Jewish people are going to see increased gun control laws. Now, if you're Aryan, you have relaxed gun control laws. You have more access to firearms, but Jewish people have less access to firearms around this time. The Jewish people are going to start being segregated into ghettos, certain sections of the city. That's where the Jewish neighborhood is. We're going to stick all the Jewish people there. Um, and businesses are going to be forced. If you have a Jewish-owned business, it will be forced to be sold to a Gentile, a non-Jewish person, usually for pennies on the dollar, pfennigs on the mark. Um, but early on, this is why I mentioned physicians. Early on, Jewish medical doctors can no longer treat non-Jewish people. So if you live in Germany in the 1930s, if you have a Jewish medical doctor that you really like, you can't see them anymore because they're not allowed to treat non-Jewish people. So you lose that connection. If you're a non-Jewish person, you lose that connection with this Jewish doctor that you might have and like. Schools, public schools in Germany, they're going to have a limit on how many Jewish students that they're allowed to have. At first, it's 1.5% of the school's population can be Jewish. We'll let that settle for a little while, and then the next restriction is no Jewish kids at schools. Jewish people are not permitted to go to the theater. No movies, no plays. Jewish people are not permitted to go to public gatherings. Really quickly, in the early 1930s, just to make sure that Germany can identify everybody, um, Jewish people with non-Jewish names have to add a sort of easily identifiable name. Women have to forced to add Sarah to their papers, and men are forced to add Israel to their papers, to their passports and their other identification papers. But what they've been doing over the last couple of years is getting these people out of public life. You go to the park, you don't see any Jewish people. You go to the theater, you don't see any Jewish people. You go to the doctor, you don't see a Jewish doctor. You don't see Jewish people at the doctor because they can only go to Jewish doctors. Um, any kind of public gathering, there's no Jewish people there. And so you've segregated these people fully from a lot of the rest of society. And then in 1938, this is what is so scary about this. It happens so fast when it actually gets started. In 1938, Germany starts arresting Jewish men. and they start putting them inside labor camps in Germany. Usually, these labor camps are labor camps, or they are for political opponents. And so the Jewish men are being arrested and put into camps inside Germany, as well as the anarchists, the socialists, the communists, the gay people, some political opponents that are causing problems, some religious leaders that are causing problems. Now, a big thing is the camps that are located inside Germany. They're not expressly designed to be extermination camps. The camps inside Germany are going to have a lot of lives lost, but they're not designed for that. They're designed for labor camps. They're designed for political concentration camps to just lock people up. Germany later, when they start World War II in Europe and they start taking territory outside of Germany, the extermination camps are going to be located outside of Germany because they don't really want super, clear that the German people know, hey, we are just murdering people wholesale. The German people know something's happening, but there's this kind of idea of plausible deniability that, look, those people are just not here anymore. They're bad. They're problematic. They are gone away. That's kind of the thing. They know that something's happening, but the German government doesn't want to broadcast that, hey, we're just murdering people. So they're easing the public into all of this stuff. So now, uh, the next 3 slides are going to have pictures of people being tortured, medical experimentation, or dead bodies. If you don't want to look at these slides, I'm going to keep lecturing and talking, and I will describe what's going on, and I will spell out the names of the camps. You need to get the names of the camps for the quiz. But if you don't want to look at the image, don't, I guess. Um, I feel like everybody should, but I'm not going to make any. I don't feel like that's really my position to make you look at these. But I will spell out any words that are on the slide. So I'm going to change the next slide. The next slide has people undergoing medical experimentation / torture. So just so you know. So, first slide here is of a concentration camp that's inside of Germany. It's a little bit outside of Stuttgart, Germany. It does have Jewish inmates. It does have political prisoners. There are socialist, communists, anarchists here. There are also a couple of people that are religious leaders that are locked up at a place called Dachau. Is this camp? It's Dachau. People do die at Dachau. There are approximately 32,000 deaths at Dachau. Like, lots of people die of disease, lots of people die of medical experimentation, but they're not absolutely trying to kill people. They are fine with killing people, but that's not the goal of this camp. That's not what it's designed to do. This camp does operate over the course of 12 years, and most of those deaths come in the last couple of years of the war. But, you can see it does have I've actually been to this camp. It does have a crematory there at the top picture. I don't remember if they had more ovens than this while it was in operation. The camp was bigger than it is now. And they've rebuilt some of the holding buildings and stuff like that. I imagine that it only operated with 3 crematory ovens. I don't remember exactly, but they are expecting people to die. They do have crematory ovens to burn the bodies. But big thing is this camp is going to especially be used by the Luftwaffe to do experiments, human experimentation. Um, we are society, the world, Germany is building increased fighter aircraft with increased capabilities. Well, what happens if you fly really, really high up in the atmosphere? At what point, at what altitude can a person no longer function? And so the top picture of the guy up there in an aircraft harness, he's in a pressure cell and they've pumped the air out of there. They've lowered the atmosphere to try to figure out at what uh, altitude would that person die? What altitude would they lose consciousness, and then what altitude would they die? They do experiments to conclusion. They do them until the people die at Dachau. Um, Another concern that the Luftwaffe has is they are going to be flying over the English Channel in the North Atlantic when they start attacking England, and some pilots will go down in the English Channel, and it's really, really cold water. Well, uh, what if we dress multiple people up in pilot garb and put them in water that is the same temperature as the English Channel? At what point would they start developing hypothermia? At what point would they lose consciousness? At what point would they die? And so Dachau does a lot of medical experimentation, and they do it all the way to death. And again, 32,000 people die at Dachau, but that's not the point of this camp. And again, they're fine with killing people, but that's not what this is designed to do. Next slides are, I feel like, even worse, if that's a thing that you can kind of put a descriptor on. But moving on. So outside of Germany, in Poland, uh, Germany starts making their way to the east really, really quickly early in the war, and they attack Poland very, very early in the war. And one of the most famous extermination camps, this is what this is designed to do. One of the most famous extermination camps from the Holocaust is Auschwitz-Birkenau. This is again in Poland, and Auschwitz-Birkenau, this one single camp. There are satellite camps around Auschwitz that are labor camps and all kinds of other stuff. But the central camp saw the deaths of 1.1 million people. Guys, Alabama has the entire population of Alabama is 5 million people. They killed 1/5 of the population of Alabama at this camp. It's even more troubling than that if you can kind of put something like that on there. Again, I'm not going to ask you for dates except for one that's in the next lecture at the end of World War II. But the first gas chamber comes online at Auschwitz on March the 22nd of 1942. The camp is liberated on January the 27th of 1945. So in about 2 years, right? 42 to 43, 44. Yeah, three years. Sorry, I can't count. In about 3 years, they killed 1.1 million people at this one single camp. If you divide that up, it's about 2,000 people a day. Well, no, that's wrong. That is way wrong. Never mind. Sorry. A different number. Uh, Never mind. That's more numbers. We don't really need to go into that. But yeah, they killed 1.1 million people in a little bit under 3 years. So this is the selection process at when people arrive at the camp, that down there is a box of wedding rings. The picture behind my head is a mountain of shoes. Because they would put people into the gas chambers and then they would have other people go into the gas chambers afterwards and strip them of anything that was usable. Um, and so they had all these shoes and gold and stuff left over. Next picture is also kind of rough. Auschwitz has a couple of gas chamber blocks, and they have multiple ovens, and they run them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so they are burning bodies at a really fast clip. They ultimately, as everything is getting really super efficient in the business of murder, they were burning 4,416 bodies a day. 4,416 bodies every single day for just about 3 years. So, um, okay, if you're not looking at, don't write this stuff down just yet. But if you're not looking, I have gotten off of those slides with the camps. I apologize. I did not spell Auschwitz. It is Auschwitz. Auschwitz. Auschwitz is an extermination camp. Extermination camps are outside of Germany. Labor camps and camps for political prisoners, like Dachau, are inside of Germany. Lots and lots of death at both, but the extermination camps are designed for that. Um, Over the course of the entire war, and we're going to get into the war here in this next lecture, but over the course of the entire war, 6 million Jewish people in total are murdered. Another 5 million are also murdered by Nazi Germany. Prisoners of war, gay people, Romani, communists, socialists, anarchists, anybody that is deemed an other, anybody that doesn't fit into sort of this kind of traditional lifestyle or traditional genetic makeup, those people are going to be, they're going to try to murder all of them. They do not really enjoy differences. So, onto this particular slide. Kind of jumping to the Pacific, and during the war, on the next slide, when the United States enters the war in the next lecture, sorry, we'll kind of take care of Germany, and then we'll take care of the Pacific. I would find it way too confusing to try to jump back and forth. In 1942, this is going on in Germany. In 1942, this is going on in the Pacific. That's just way wild, and also we really simplify things. So in the Pacific, 1940, Japan is going to sign the Tripartite Act with Germany and Italy. That simply is a mutual defense treaty. And if anyone declares war on any three of these countries, then the other two countries will declare war on that country. And so, here in a second, when the United States declares war on Germany, or I mean, when the United States declares war on Japan, sorry, I'm kind of getting mixed up a little. Germany very quickly answers and declares war on the United States. Hitler's really upset about it, but he kind of feels like that according to the Tripartite Act, they have to do so. But he's upset about that because he wasn't really ready to make that move just yet. But after signing that, Japan is going to move on Indochina, what we would call Vietnam today, as well as the Dutch East Indies, which are located around Australia. They are trying to get rubber, which we are not producing synthetic rubber just yet in world history. So we need actual rubber for tires and hoses and all kinds of stuff and belts. And they are going to need oil, and that's going to be sourced out of the Dutch East Indies for Japan. In response to that, and the United States does this regularly, After the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, the United States froze a lot of Russian assets in the United States. So we use economic leverage quite a bit. So after the aggression, further aggression by Japan, the Roosevelt administration is going to freeze all Japanese assets and stop selling Japan oil. So they've locked up a lot of their monies, and we are no longer selling Japan oil. And at the time, the United States is one of the major producers of oil in the world. And so we have the go-go juice, and Japan really, really needs it. In response to that, uh, the government of Japan decides that if they have not normalized relations with the United States, gotten rid of those economic freezing of those assets, and normalized relations so that the United States is once again selling them oil, if they have not got that resolved by, is it April? No, it's October, right? October of 45? I think so. If they have not gotten that resolved by October of 45, then they are going to have to go to war with the United States. And that doesn't happen. The United States does not normalize relations with them. We do not start selling Japan oil again. And so they prepare for war with the United States. And 2 months after that, in December of 1945, Japan is going to attack the American fleet out at Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. Um, Military planners in the United States knew that an attack was likely coming, but they really, really didn't think that Japan would be able to reach all the way the heck out at Pearl in Hawaii. That's really, really kind of far outside of what we thought was their capabilities. Uh, Most of the military planners in the United States felt like that the Philippines would very, very much be on the table. It's a lot closer to Japan, but that's not where the attack took place. So after the attack happens, the United States declares war on Japan, and then Germany responds by declaring war on the United States. And at that point, December the 7th, 1941, the United States has entered World War II. It's been going for a couple of years, but the United States enters in 1941. Something really, really interesting, cool, I don't know, is that the American people really respond with overwhelming support. Pretty much every single aspect of American society mobilizes to support the war effort. Um, we talked about the industrialization with the Rockefeller and the DuPonts and J.P. Morgan a little bit. Um, as well as Andrew Carnegie, all of that effort that they put into making money and enriching themselves that just so happened to industrialize the United States, all of those sort of industries are going to flip to military production really, really quickly. It's honestly, it's kind of amazing how fast everything flips to military production and how complete it is. I've read accounts of prisoners out at Sing Sing prison that volunteer. They're in prison, they're not doing anything anyway, but they volunteer to help out the United States. Yes, these people are criminals. Yes, they've done something wrong, most likely to wind up in prison, but they are still that kind of patriotic that they jump into the war effort. A couple of other things. Women are going to be very, very much mobilized. The Rosie the Riveter image that we all kind of see with women going to work in factories and munitions plants and stuff like that. Another thing that I particularly find very, very cool is the Women's Air Corps is formed. So the United States is producing military aircraft all over the United States. Well, we've got to get those military aircraft to the front. And so somebody has to fly them to the front to the pilots that are in combat. Well, we have a limited number of pilots, a limited number of male pilots anyway, and we only put male pilots in combat. And so the Women's Air Corps is going to form, and women are going to fly every single kind of aircraft that the United States fields during World War II. A really, really cool thing is that we'll see some pictures of the most innovative bomber, the B-29 for World War II. We'll see some of those later on. And a lot of the guys, the male bomber pilots, and it's a scary, big, giant thing. And it does some new stuff that other aircraft weren't doing at the time. And, new things are scary things. And a lot of the male bomber pilots were a little bit leery of trying to fly this thing. And they brought in several Women's Air Corps pilots to demonstrate the B-29 and to sort of shame these guys. Look, these women are able to fly it. What's your problem? And got the guys to sort of man up, I guess, if that's a phrase that we're still using, and fly it and stop complaining about it. Another really wild example that I like to put up is, and we'll talk about industry in the next lecture a little bit, but every single industry is flipping to military production. And it gets to the point partway through the war that the United States naval yards are producing more ships than we can actually use. They're producing warships, destroyers, aircraft carriers, and all that, but they're also producing a lot of cargo ships because we have to get, people to the front, and we have to supply them with ammunition, food, resources, and all kinds of stuff like that. And it gets to the point where we're producing more cargo ships than we actually can use. And at one point during the war, the United States Navy, literally, that's not a joke news story behind my head there. The United States Navy literally takes one of those cargo ships and converts it into a floating ice cream ship. They put an ice cream factory, they install an ice cream factory in the ship, and it will go to different ships and stuff out in the Pacific and deliver ice cream to build up morale. And so the American industrial complex is producing so much stuff that we can build an ice cream ship. We're going to compare that to, especially I like to look at Germany's industrial capabilities in the next lecture. They're not able to do anything close to that, and they're actually making stupid things. That they don't have a good industrial capability, and they choose to make stupid things, in large part because Hitler is a micromanaging idiot. But that's a very, very sharp contrast that the United States is able to produce an ice cream ship. So we're going to cut there, and we'll get World War II continued on the next lecture.